Good morning and welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Abba Blankson. I am the Senior Vice President for Communications for the nation's premier civil rights organization, the NAACP.
All right.
It is good to be in the city of Boston today. I want to thank each and every one of you for attending our first official press conference for the NAACP's 111th National Convention. I'm joined this morning by several distinguished guests who will be bringing remarks on the work of the NAACP and the impact of the annual convention locally, regionally, and nationally. We have with us Mayor Marty Walsh, Governor Charlie Baker, NAACP National Chairman Leon W. Russell, President and CEO Derek Johnson, the Chair of our Convention Planning Committee, Michael Turner, Ms. Tanisha Sullivan, our Boston Branch President, Mr. Juan Cofield, the President of our New England State Conference, Representative Russell Holmes, and special guest Mr. Otis Raleigh of the Rockefeller Foundation. I'll be back up in a few minutes to facilitate the Q&A, but to lead off, please welcome the mayor of this great city of Boston, Mayor Marty Walsh. Mayor Walsh.
Good morning, everybody. And I'll tell you, when we were in, a few months ago, we were advocating for the convention here in Boston. And today it hit me when I started looking at the sign. And I want to thank the NAACP National for choosing the great city of Boston, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, to host the 111th convention. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but it will be the best one you ever have. You know, Chairman Russell, President Johnson, Tanisha Sullivan, President Sullivan, Juan Cofield, thank you very much. Michael Curry, all the folks that are here today, the past presidents. We have two other mayors here. Yvonne Spicer from Framingham. Thank you, Ms. Spicer. Mayor Dan Rivera from Lawrence. Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank the governor as well, who's no stranger to this building and this neighborhood. Thank you, Gov, for being here today. There's a lot of folks on the city's team that's here that I want to thank them for their work. I probably shouldn't start naming people, but I want to thank John Barros. Our new superintendent of schools, Brenda Casilius. Chief Jerome Smith, thank you, Jerome Smith. Chief Marty Martinez. John Irish. Laurie Nelson. I made a mistake. You know, everyone, thank you for being here. The NAACP scholars, thank you. We're the scholars. They're here today. Thank you very much. My Brother's Keeper Boston, thank you very much. My Brother's Keeper Boston. Representative Holmes and all the elected officials. If I see you, I'll give you a quick shout out. Otis Raleigh, our friend from the Rockefeller Foundation, who's been an amazing partner to the city of Boston. Thank you very much. Just a quick story behind our relationship with the Rockefeller Foundation. We filed an application back in 2015, I believe it was, for one of the 100 Resilient Cities applications, and we based our application on race. And we put in there about what we want to do in the city of Boston, and it was kind of the first time they received an application like that, and we got awarded, granted, and Otis has been our partner, and Laurie Nelson's office came out of that, and a lot of great things. I want to thank you for that. But I'm on a timeline here, so I'll be quick now. On behalf of the City of Boston, it's my honor to officially welcome the national leadership of the NAACP here to our city. We are honored and thrilled and excited and happy to host the 2020 convention. Accepting the invitations was certainly one of the most proudest moments for me as mayor of the City of Boston. I also want to give a shout out to our clergy, sorry. They pray for a second. This convention will be a milestone event in Boston's history. As many of you know, or if you don't know, Boston is home to the first chartered branch of the NAACP. And it's an iconic American institution, certainly a champion for civil rights and social justice, and still continues today to carry that mantle and to fight that cause. It's a force for good and progress. The annual convention is an opportunity so we can have a discussion on what our nation needs to do next. It's a call to action, not just for the City of Boston, not just the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but the entire country. I also want to give a shout out to our Lieutenant Governor, Karen Polito's here today. This past July, I had the honor to go to the convention in Detroit. It was a very powerful experience. I met with some of the nation's greatest civil rights leaders. We had some honest and real conversations, and we returned home with new partnerships and new friendships to tackle some of the greatest challenges of our time. Now it's Boston's turn to host the NAACP convention and bring the convention to our communities. This convention is not coming to Boston. This convention is coming to our neighborhoods. And it's something that we want to make sure that all Bostonians are part of and proud of. Because it's not about having a convention at its convention center and at a hotel. We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to experience the NAACP's history and tradition and how we're going to move forward and move our country forward. Hosting this convention allows us the opportunity to chance to build on the progress that's been made. It's also an opportunity for us to focus on what the work that's still left to be done, and there's a lot of work. Every day we're investing in our neighborhoods and our young people. We're working to expand economic opportunity. We're dismantling systemic racism, and we're honoring and celebrating Black history. We're facing the past, having hard conversations, and moving forward together. And that's how we have to do. We have to move forward together. Over the past few days, representatives of the NAACP and the leadership have been in Boston and have spent time touring our city and seeing what our city has to offer. They visited the convention center and some other potential venues for events, workshops, talking to speakers and celebrations that we're planning here. This is one of the most highly anticipated conventions in modern history. We're at a pivotal moment in our nation's history, and that's something to understand and continue to acknowledge. In Boston, we stand for civil rights and social justice, the enduring values of the NAACP. Our city is succeeding because we lead with those values. And our city is succeeding, as always has, because of resilience and the contributions of our Black community here in Boston. We look forward to hosting next summer. This is a huge opportunity for the City of Boston, and we're expected to be one of the most powerful conventions ever. The timing of this convention 2020 also is unique. When you think about as we lead into a presidential election, the eyes of the world will be on Boston during that week in that convention because of the conversations that will be happening in our city. I want to make a special thank you to Tanisha Sullivan and the Boston branch, who has worked extremely hard on this, and the work that we're working collaboratively together to make sure that this convention is the best that you've ever had. We want you at the end of that convention, when you walk on that stage and you announce the next city and the next group of people on that stage, I want people to say, wow, Boston was amazing. Not because of the parties, not because of the celebrations, but because of the conversations. So I want to welcome you to Boston and thank you very much for choosing Boston to hold this conference.
Thank you, Mayor Walsh. He's saying his hellos, but Governor Charles Baker, please come up. Thank you.
So first of all, Charles is what my mom and dad call me when I've done something wrong. Look, I just want to start by congratulating Tanisha Sullivan and her team and the mayor for this tremendous opportunity here in Boston and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I want to thank President Johnson and Chairman Russell and all the folks associated with the NAACP for choosing to have your convention here. And as the mayor pointed out, this convention at this time is going to be a monumental moment and a really significant event. And what I would just say to all of you who are gathered here today, we are going to do whatever we need to do to make sure that the city and the convention and the state work together to make this truly a wonderful and memorable experience for everybody who's involved. Lieutenant Governor and I spend a lot of time with our colleagues in local government across the Commonwealth. We really do believe, having both served in local government ourselves at one point or another, that if you don't make local communities strong, you don't have a strong Commonwealth. It's as simple as that. And for us, this is a chance to partner with the NAACP and with the City of Boston and all the other players and partners to make sure that this is a really special occasion and a terrific event, and one that creates possibility, hope, and opportunity going forward. The final thing I was asked to do, and I am trying to be brief here, I'm going to live within my time limit, Mr. Mayor. You know, we all speak at, this is a total tangent and I apologize, we all speak at the Martin Luther King breakfast every year that takes place here in the Commonwealth. And we are always given by the organizers and the faith community very strict limits on how long we are allowed to speak. And I usually speak right before Senator Ed Markey speaks. Now, people who know where I'm going, and I live within my time limit. And I've gotten to the point where the last few years, I actually go shorter than my time limit, and I yield the rest of my time to the gentleman, Senator Markey, because honestly, he never heard a deadline that mattered to him. But I just want to say how honored we are to have you choose this city and our Commonwealth. And I can promise you that I will be here myself, personally, to greet you when you come. I now have the chance to introduce the chairman, Leon W. Russell. Leon, I think as many people know, has served on the board of the NAACP for almost 30 years. He spent many, many years as a renowned and visionary human rights officer in Pinellas County in Florida. I apologize for the temperature. And I would just say that we are, as I said, honored to have you all choose this great Commonwealth and this great city of Boston. But most of all, I just want you to know that we're going to do everything we can, as the mayor said, to make whoever it is that gets the next gig on this start to sweat the minute they get to the okay?
Thank you, Governor Baker and Mayor Walsh. It is probably the most auspicious year that we could possibly have a convention in Boston. We were last here in 1982. That was a great year for the NAACP historically, as we dealt with one of the most important issues of litigation that ever faced our association. A piece of litigation that challenged our ability to really speak to communities about the discrimination they were carrying on. That was the Port Gibson, Mississippi case. That was culminated, and we finally were victorious in that situation in terms of retaining our ability to be a strong voice for civil rights and social justice in this nation. And so we celebrated that here in Boston in 1982. Boston is very important to the history of the NAACP. If we think about the fact that we will be going into our 51st Image Awards program, we really started talking about the image of African Americans, Black Americans, that was portrayed on the screens. The first protest really came out of Boston when we talked about that whole, well, I won't even mention the movie, but it was the one that we had to go to the White House and tell the president he ought not be showing. Birth of a Nation, all right? So Boston is important to us. It's given us many leaders over the years. You think back, and historically this city has meant much to the association. Just giving us leaders like Lenny Elkins. And much of why we're here is dependent on Lori Nelson from the mayor's office. And we appreciate Lori, but we know there would be no Lori without a Charlotte. And so we are thrilled because we have leaders here who understand the work of our association. As we go into our 111th year, our nation faces many challenges. Some we thought had been put behind us. But here we are again, talking about education, talking about economic sustainability, talking about the criminal justice system, talking about the things that impact our community from a public policy standpoint. So when we come here, we will create a stage. We will create a new dialogue about what's happening with our decision to determine who will lead the policy making for this nation. That's a serious thing when you think about 2020 and when you think about we'll be here in July and some conventions will have already determined who will be in that contest, the real contest. It's an important time. We appreciate the support this city has given us. We appreciate the support that the state of Massachusetts will give to us. We're bringing on a new partner, and we're very happy that the Rockefeller Foundation will be supporting what we do here as they have supported what you do in the city of Boston. So we're looking forward, and we are quite pleased that the 111th Annual Convention of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People will be held in Boston, Massachusetts. We will bring folks from all over the country. We know that you will be able to show them the dynamic things that are happening here in Boston, and we hope that they will be inspired to take some of what you're doing back to their communities. We will showcase you as you have never been showcased before. We look forward to an outstanding convention with the leadership here, Tanisha and Juan and all of the folks who make up the local NAACP community. We are just pleased that we are able to say that Boston will host our convention. And with that, it is my privilege to bring to the podium the President, Chief Executive Officer of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, none other than Derek Johnson.
So pleased that in July when we convene here and I get off the plane, it will not be 15 degrees. said we don't know, right? It is definitely an honor to join you today for our first official announcement of the 111th convening of our delegates from 47 states, 2,200 units from across the country. And believe it or not, we have members who will be traveling here from Alaska, from Hawaii, from Florida, from Maine, and all points in between. But it's also unique because one of our founders, who was one of the first graduates of Harvard, will be smiling down on us, W.B. Du Bois. So many of us, we traveled to Ghana this year to recognize the 400th year of the transatlantic slave trade. It was significant to us because that's also the country where W.E.B. Du Bois was laid to rest. And it was among him and Ida B. Wells and so many others who understood the nature of a social justice organization like NAACP. It is our role to raise points of public policy, an advocacy group, to speak to the role and the posture of this nation as it related to race. Our democracy now is at an inflection point. We have to pay close attention of the direction moving forward. NAACP National Convention will be one of the final places that will provide a stage of individuals vying for the White House. We will be the lead up to both the Democratic and the Republican convention. It will be a stage where we will invite all candidates who are viable for the office to come speak. But we will not surrender the microphone for racial hate speech. We will not surrender the microphone to anyone who's not willing to speak to the issues that are germane to the African American community specifically and to this nation in general. NAACP is our role to make democracy work for everyone. And we can only do that with supporters and volunteers like our branch president, Tanisha Sutton. It was a privilege to join this community for the branch banquet. And I watched this general lead with a smile and a firm grasp. And what a beautiful event it was. I was pleased to join our area conference president, Juan Cofield, and our board member, Michael Curry, who advocated so hard for the convention to come to this city. As we convene our delegates from across the country, as eyes from across the nation, and in this case around the globe, look on Boston, we want to make sure that we display both in words and action the diversity of this nation, the potential of our future generations, and the opportunities that we have to make democracy work for all. I look forward to joining you, Mayor. I thank you for your leadership. Governor, I want to be at the signing ceremony for the budget as you support the grants. Of this community, so we truly will make not only the African American community in this city proud, but the African American community and Americans across the globe proud of who we are and the diversity that we support. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Michael Turner, and I'm proud to be the chair of the Convention Planning Committee. And these are my vice chairs, Dr. Hazel Dukes from New York, and Helen Meyer from New York. Let me tell you, selecting the site for the 111th National Convention was no easy task. 2020 is going to be a very pivotal year, a very powerful year for each and every one of us, as it will change and dictate the course of America for the next 20 years. And so we were courted by many, many people. Boston was not on the radar. I'm going to be brutally honest. but I had a tenacious board member in Michael Curry who kept insisting that we take a look at Boston. And he said the mayor of the city of Boston really wants us. And so it is my job, our job, to recommend to the National Board what is the best proposal for our delegates to the NAACP. And after traveling many cities, and I'm not going to name them, I told Michael Curry, I said, Mr. Curry, I'm gonna come to Boston. And when I left Boston, let me tell you, it was because of the energetic and aggressive enthusiasm of board member Michael Curry and Mayor Walsh. When we got here, they laid out the red carpet. And I left here saying, I must recommend to the board, the city of Boston, because they really want us. And I want to commend board member Michael Curry and Mayor Walsh, because you laid out the red carpet. And I would tell you, we have a very tenacious, energetic, and very organized branch president, Tanisha Solomon. And she has assured us that she's going to have an inclusive committee, and they're going to be together. And we have a seasoned state conference president in Juan Cofield. But what I want to leave to you is that when we arrive this summer in Boston, I don't care what creed, color, or religion you are, everyone is invited to participate. You do not have to be a member. I want you to come, and I want you to bring someone, and hope that when you leave, you will say, I want to join the NAACP. We are here planning the activities. All roads lead to Boston. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Board Member Michael Curry. I am so looking forward to working with the Boston branch, because Tanisha Sullivan is a very energetic sister. And now it is my pleasure to bring to you our new partner for the 2020 convention, Mr. Otis Rowley from the Rockefeller Foundation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chairman Russell and Governor Baker, Mayor Walsh, clergy. So what is old is new again. The NAACP has been important to the Rockefeller Foundation in the past, and our future is one in which we are very much looking forward to partnering with you. The Rockefeller Foundation is active in place-based work in 26 cities in the United States. One of those cities is the city of Boston. And in the city of Boston is the only of those 26 cities that has identified racial equity and economic mobility as their #1 resilience strategy, their #1. The mayor talked to you a little bit earlier about the participation in 100 Resilient Cities. What he didn't say, because he was trying to be humble, right, was the fact that 1,200 cities globally competed. 1,200. Right? Only 100 was selected. And Boston was one of those 100. And the reason why Boston beat so many of the other U.S. cities that competed was because you had the courage and the tenacity to say that we cannot be a global city and be a racist city. Right? You said that in order for us to be a truly resilient city, we had to include growth and opportunity for all of our citizens. That took courage, Mr. Mayor. That took leadership. And for that, the Rockefeller Foundation was committed then, is committed now, and will continue to be committed to this great city. So we are proud of this long-standing relationship with the city. And when we found out that the NAACP, in its wisdom, had decided that it was going to come to this city to highlight the greatness of the nation's premier civil rights organization, we said there was no better match, and we wanted to be part of that party. Right? Because we recognize that when greatness, iron sharpens iron. You like that, Pastor? Iron sharpens iron. Right? And a great civil rights organization operating in a great city that is committed to resilience and racial equity is going to provide a platform for this nation to show how to do it right. And so we are excited to announce today that we're going to be committing $300,000 towards this convention. And we want to continue to invest not just in the city of Boston, but in the national work of the NAACP, because we know together there are great things that we can do. Together we can show this nation how to do it right. So thank you. My apologies. And now it's my privilege to bring to the stage our, not just yours, but our branch president, Tanisha.
Well, good morning. Good morning. And first, I want to take a moment to thank, of course, our national leadership, Chairman Russell, and our Vice Chair, Karen Boykins-Towns, who's here with us this morning. As well, our local board members, Michael Curry, who you heard referenced earlier. He is really sorry that he's not able to be here today, but certainly we greatly appreciate not only the work that he has done on the national level, but as you know, he's my predecessor, and really did set the bar pretty high for me. And so we want to thank him, and as well, Juan Cofield, our other locally based national board member. The Convention Planning Committee, you already heard from Chairman Turner, and of course, I must thank Dr. Hazel Dukes, the civil rights icon, on whose shoulders I truly do stand as a sister in service, a sister in leadership, and of course, Helen Myers. Thank you so very much. Our national president and CEO, you know he's dynamic. We're going to see a lot of him over the next 8 months, and we're looking forward to it. Our President Derek Johnson and his leadership team as directed by Eris Sims. Thank you. It's a lot of thank yous, I know. But I do also want to, of course, acknowledge and thank both the mayor and the governor and the lieutenant governor for your commitment to making sure that this convention is not just one of the best that we've had in the association, but truly that it is a reflection of the best of all of us here in this part of the country. We look forward to working with other elected officials, our faith community. Thank you, bishops, for being here. Civil rights partners, the business community. I see Jim Rooney here. Thank you so very much. Academia, and of course, our philanthropic communities. As you've already heard, the Boston branch of this association is a historic branch. In fact, we have the distinction of being the first chartered branch in this association. That's a legacy that belongs to all of us. Right downtown at the Park Street Church, a uniquely diverse group of Bostonians in 1912 received our charter. Black, white, Christian, Jewish, men and women came together to say that we must stand together and work together to eliminate racial discrimination and bring about racial equality in this country. I'm proud to serve as the 31st president of this branch, but the 6th woman to hold this. The first woman to serve as branch president in this association anywhere in the country was the president of the Boston branch, Florence LeSueur. The roots of this association in Boston and across this region are deep. from the first president of the association, Morefield Story, to our founder, W.E.B. Du Bois, to the late Kibby Kaplan, and to our very own Tom Atkins. The fingerprints of Bostonians are inextricably woven into the fabric of the NAACP. It is from our founder, W.E.B. Du Bois, a native of Great Barrington, Massachusetts, who served as the guardian of the NAACP message in the very beginning, galvanizing civil rights leaders across this country through his work as a journalist and editor of The Crisis magazine. With that in mind, I know there's this question about what does this convention really mean to us here in the city of Boston? The answer, quite frankly, at this moment is unknown. That story has yet to be written. But we, collectively, as a city, have the pen. We, collectively, have the power to write that vision, and together, tighter than we have ever been, to execute on a vision that says, quite frankly, to the country and the world, that we are deeply committed to racial justice and racial equity here in the city of Boston. With that in mind, I want you to know that we were very intentional about being in Roxbury today. Being in Roxbury serves as a reminder to all of us the mission of this organization. The work we do every day in neighborhoods across this city and across this nation is about the dignity, the worth, and humanity of people, especially those who are so often shut out by systemic racism and classism. Black people, working class people, Latinx, Asian Pacific Islanders, women, members of the LGBTQIA community. The work of the NAACP has never been about moments or short-term gains or photo opportunities. This work is about movement building, long-term vision, and an unwavering belief that if we work together, we will all realize the hope and the promise of this nation. So as we prepare for 2020, our focus, my neighbors in Boston, cannot solely be on celebrating this event. This is more than a moment. We have in our grasp something more, something even greater. This is an opportunity for all of us to transform what could be simply a moment in our history into a renewed, catalytic movement centered on racial and economic equity and inclusion for our neighborhoods across this city. So as I lead at this very exciting time, please know that the goal toward which we are aspiring and which we invite our neighbors across the city to join us in is about leaning into this moment so that we can all together transform this into a catalytic movement. Thank you. I now have the honor of introducing our New England Area Conference President, Mr. Juan Cofield. I'm going to invite him to join us at the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am delighted that all of you have joined us this morning in the announcement of the 111th Annual Convention of the NAACP coming here to Boston. Thank all of you for being here. I want to begin by saying, giving my appreciation to the NAACP leadership for making the decision to come to Boston. It is wonderful that you're here. We know that the collection of all of us will deliver for the NAACP like never before. The convention will put the spotlight on the wonderful advocacy work of the Boston branch and the outstanding advocacy work of the New England Area Conference. It will also address the systemic racial inequities throughout the United States. Unfortunately, there remains lots of social justice advocacy work for all across the country to be done by the NAACP units. One of the truly huge assets of the greater Boston area is the vast array of exceptional educational institutions in the greater Boston area. The NAACP will expose our young and talented young members to some of these institutions and also expose these same institutions to the talented and smart young leaders across the country. We are talking today about how we will bring young folk here who are part of the NAACP and expose them to these institutions. Education is one of the primary advocacy issues for the New England Area Conference. We're going to make it work. We see this as a win for our young freedom fighters, for the educational institutions, and the greater Boston area to have these young students matriculating here amongst us. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you being here. And I can also say that I'm coming from a vantage point of an emphasis on education, of having served as the vice chair of the Board of Higher Education a number of years ago. Thank you so much.
Thank you, President Cofield. We'd like to bring up Representative Russell Holmes to give a few remarks, and then we'll take questions.
Thank you. I want to begin by, of course, recognizing some of my colleagues in government who are with us and our former colleagues. We have former State Rep Marie St. Fleur here. We have former State Representative Evandro Carvalho, who's joined us as well. We have former Senator Linda Docina-Fori. And we also have our City Councilor at Large, Althea Garrison, who's with us as well. Have I overlooked anyone? I don't think so. Oh, Liz, sorry, and my great colleague in government today, Liz Miranda. I'm going to just say right now, also before I overlook Conan Harris, who's here, I say he's recognizing him. He's going to recognize him as himself, but also obviously our former councilor, but of course our current woman, Ayanna Presley. So again, I'm Russell Holmes. I have the honor of representing portions of Mattapan, Dorchester, Hyde Park, Rosendale, and JP. And I was just asked just to say a few words just from the perspective of what we think of and the challenges we have in government. So I begin with the mission statement that the NAACP had many years ago. And it reads, to uplift the colored men and women of this country by securing them a full enjoyment of their rights as citizens, justice in all courts, and equality to opportunity everywhere. I begin with that statement because of my good friend, the governor. Because there's been often, I've been in meetings with him where he says a true belief that he has is that talent has been distributed to everyone, race, gender, and nationality. But unfortunately, it's the last part of that statement about equality to opportunity for everyone that is really the challenge that we see each and every day. And I begin there because I was fortunate to be chair of the caucus when he became governor. And he made a commitment on that first meeting that the Black and Latino Caucus has. We have a quarterly meeting with them to say we're going to have frank conversations and we're going to deal with some very tough issues. And we're going to deal with the issues that are really issues around Black and Latino. And I can tell you the conversations we have an agreement pretty much. We're going to drop down all, governor, Mr. Representative, all of those things for about an hour and a half. And we're going to have a real conversation for about an hour and a half. And then we're going to get away from that conversation and then still be able to walk away as friends. And those conversations in those rooms have been challenging around the fact that a sense of the conversations around, let's say, opiates. The fact that all of a sudden the face and the race of opiates has changed what addiction looks like. And have a real talk conversation about what addiction had looked like in Black and brown communities for decades and what it looks like now with the challenges we have around opiates. But to just understand that he's willing to have that conversation. I can tell you there's been opiates, supply of diversity, civil service, housing. I can tell you when we sat down to just have a conversation that we had done an awful lot of construction in the Commonwealth around affordable housing, but it had all been rental. And for him to walk away and then come back in 2 months and say, well, we do have about $85 million we can now dedicate to ownership. Those are just real conversations of how we move wealth from having it so that we're just renting properties to now that we're going to have affordable ownership, which is very different. And to the President's point, we also have conversations about Black people and having a conversation straight around the fact that you need a Black advisory council and a Latino advisory council, as well as women and all other, obviously, disproportionately impacted communities. But to have that and have a setup and an agenda that says, here are all the issues that we've heard from you as Black people, as Latino people, that we want to address. And so I thank him for that, and that's why, this is why it is important for me to begin. I know the President had mentioned just a moment ago that we have $200,000 that we expect him to sign. So I began with saying, let's definitely sign that, but as I said to Karen when that was announced, for those who don't know, we've been struggling with a budget and getting the supplemental budget done. We got it done last night, and we're very thankful for Senator Collins and his effort on the Senate side to get that $200,000 into the budget and us all to push it, and it got over the line last night. But I said to the Lieutenant Governor, that is just the beginning. Know that if you don't drop it in House 2, another $250,000, another $500,000, know that I will be looking to get the rest of it. And so, because I've said to Tanisha, I asked Tanisha long ago, I said, Tanisha, what do you think you need? She said, I don't know, maybe $1 million. I said, okay, I think that's a good number for us to think that you need. Simply because of the fact that we have to always remember that this is an all-volunteer organization. And if we want to do exactly what I've heard all the speakers talk about today, make this the finest in the history of the NAACP, then let's, at the state level and the city level, deliver the funding that we need so that we can show out. I know this is a liberty that I wasn't expected to take, but there are two folks also that I want to make sure I recognize in the governor's team. That's Anthony Richards Jr. And also Donnie Tavares. I know he just walked down those steps on the mayor's team. I can simply tell you that the Black man, it's always good to have another Black man to call and say, I need some jobs. And these guys always come through, and I really do appreciate them. I know I'm going across the line. So, let me get to the mayor about hard conversations. I know Pat about 5 minutes, probably. Hard conversations. Let me just simply tell you about hard conversations with the mayor. The elected of color, I have the honor of having just the logistics of trying to organize us here in the city of Boston, which is hard. Getting all of us, Black, Latino, Asian, all of us into a room every 2 weeks to try to figure out what is it that we're going to go at the mayor about. Because that's really what we're trying to figure out. What is the agenda? How do we move this city? And I can just tell you some of those hard conversations have been what do we do about the vendor numbers? And he signed a bill, obviously, to get these vendors in higher numbers. Unfortunately, Kim Janey didn't join us today, but the cannabis bill last week of making sure that we look at how do we have an industry that, quite frankly, many white folks used to drive into the city to get cannabis, and that was just a reputation. But then the moment it becomes legal, all of a sudden black people have to drive to white neighborhoods because it's legal. And we have to change that to say, how do we make sure that we are disproportionate communities, that we now have this opportunity, because of the fact that a lot of this still comes down to funding. It still comes down to how do we figure out the businesses that are unfortunately taking about $1 million to get together. I'm going to just go on and just say all of us know the numbers. The number is $8, I'm getting a look, $8 to $247,500. We know the challenge. For those who are the National NAACP, maybe you don't know what I mean by that number, but that is the average wealth from a black here in the city of Boston from several years ago of $8 and an average white $247,500. I can just simply tell you that when I think of Tanisha, when I think of this opportunity, as she talked about, this isn't indeed about just that day. It is about, indeed, how do we make sure that we're using every vendor we possibly can use from our communities. This is about making sure that when the NAACP leaves here, you have left a solid foundation for the local branch, left a solid foundation for our community, so that we can start to address this disproportionate wealth gap and obviously all of the income gap that we have here in the city. This is an incredible opportunity. We are an incredible city, but we're an incredible city that only few folks really have the full advantage of, which goes back to what your initial theme was. Full enjoyment of their rights as citizens and equality to opportunity. I'm not done, almost. I'm going to end. I'm going to end now and just simply say, we've done it in government. We've been doing an excellent job. And I just want, when I look around the room, I think about, I had mentioned Ayanna. It looks like we're going to have Michelle, then Ayanna, and now Kim as City Council President. Michelle, Andrea, and then Kim. That is a great thing. We also just want to make sure you recognize that we have in this city, in this great city, we have a black commissioner, a black DA, and we have a black, obviously, sheriff. That is just one of the places that we're thinking about. So I would just simply say, let's make sure we highlight them. Let's make sure at the convention that all of my folks get their attention that is due, because of the fact that that is an amazing feat to have all those arms of government represented by black people. So I end with just simply saying, let us create when we leave here. So all of you folks here today, even though Tanisha didn't say it, all of you, please find an NAACP application. Yes. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whomever you are, sign up. Because even though we were saying, hey, we want everyone to show up on that day, we need to, as a community, embrace the NAACP branch now. Let's not just show up and enjoy ourselves next year and have a good time. Let us come to the meetings, let us do the hard work, because of the fact that we need to leave here as this being the light and the beacon that the black community continues to go to for the next 100 years. Thank you so much. I took the governor's time.
Thank you. We will be able to take a few questions. If I can have all the speakers come up to the podium. Everybody can come up to the podium. We're happy to take a few questions from press. If you can just raise your hand, give me the name of your outlet and your question. We can take a few questions. Yes.
You know, State Manor, just a couple of quick questions. How many people are expected, and what special outreach is government doing to make sure that black owned businesses owned by people of color give a share of the business?
And so it's always the goal of the NAACP to be as inclusive as possible with our vendors, to make sure we both promote and provide opportunities for African American vendors. This convention will be no different. We'll be working with Tanisha and the local community to help identify particular vendors. We typically, for a convention of this size, average around 10,000 people. It's been a while since we've been in Boston, but one of our goals will be to try to attract as many people from the community to also come join us in the convention.
I have a question for the governor from Commonwealth Magazine. Governor, are you going to sign the budget? We're talking about the supplemental budget, right?
I think Andy knows the answer to this question because he asks me this every time I get a budget document on my desk. And the answer is I'm going to carefully review it and then I will make a decision. But I can promise you the Lieutenant Governor and I will be thrilled to sign the $200,000. After we carefully review it.
I think we can take 2 more questions and then, yes ma'am?
Hi, Crystal Haynes from Boston 25. My question is just sort of going off on including the vendors. Given the location site for the convention, how are we going to bring communities from Roxbury, Mattapan, Dorchester so that they're involved in this because it's sort of isolated from those communities?
Thank you, Crystal, for that question. We are going to be very intentional about making sure that not only is the convention, which will be on the seaport, accessible to all of our neighborhoods, but we're also, so that folks, if they want to get down to the seaport, they're able to, but we're also going to look for opportunities like this one to make sure that we are connecting the convention into our neighborhoods. Because it's so very important that NAACP peers and our guests from across the country get a sense of the soul of this city. And you really can only do that by being in the neighborhood. So we are going to work aggressively to make sure that that happens.
And we're also working very closely with the NAACP Boston to identify vendors for all of the different things that we're going to have, whether it's catering or food or swag at the convention, all of that stuff. We're going to be making sure that it's a very diverse team and the people of color and from the neighborhoods have opportunities to access the benefits of bringing 10,000 people to the city of Boston, millions and millions of dollars spent. The money that the state's going to attribute is a portion. We're looking at we're going to raise anywhere from $3.5 to $4 million that's going to be used in the convention, and we'd love to see a super majority, 90 plus, 100% of that money spent on businesses of color.
Yes, sir?
I'm wondering, I'd like to address this.
What is your outlet, sir?
I'm Russell King. I'm with the Greater Boston Consumer Advocates Council, where we destigmatize and educate people on mental health issues. And I'm also an employee of BAPO Human Services. And it's wonderful that you will be having an educational component, but I'm wondering if issues of substance abuse and mental health will be addressed because it's a subject that is not openly discussed amongst minorities, and this might be an opportunity to begin to address it.
Okay, thank you. If folks in the side of the room can keep it down, we'll be wrapping up shortly. A question about...
Excellent question. We are here over the next couple of days to talk about the programming for the convention. Substance abuse is one of the topics that we are considering, and we're more than likely will have that conversation, along with mass incarceration. We not only have an opioid epidemic that is a result of mental health issues. We're coming out of, in many ways, a crack epidemic, which is a result of mental health issues, and unfortunately, we treated those individuals and we incarcerated those individuals. So we're going to marry the conversation in ways in which we can have a solution-based discussion around policy opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you. If everybody can take out your phone right now. So Representative Holmes asked a question about this and talked about this, and President Sullivan as well. Take out your phones. Yes, become a member of the NAACP. In addition to that, open a text message window And to the number 40649, text the message Boston 2020. And let your friends know that you are here today and that you're going to encourage everybody else to sign up and keep updated on the news and activities that are going to be happening with this convention before we get here. 40649. And you're texting the message Boston 2020, all one word. Okay, one more time, the number 40649, and you're typing the message Boston 2020. I'll take one more question, and then we'll bring up media.
Yes, I'm media, Black History Magazine. I published here. We published one of the first magazines here in Boston, June 6, 1990.
Yes.
Nelson Mandela came here. So we've covered W.E.B. Du Bois when he first started right there at Bass Avenue and Tremont, long ago, where your offices used to be, under Guscott. So I have some questions here, and the question I think is very important for the NAACP to pay attention to is, the mathematics of morality require that we count the number. What number of contracts, what number of ownership are we developing in our communities to maintain ourselves? So are we going to be looking at that in terms of home ownership, the business ownership, and contracts, like at Seaport and like in other places? So we are wondering, are you going to be looking at the numbers so that we can know that we're impacting the large communities, not just in Boston, but in the nation? Right now, we're at an equity of 8%. So that's what I want to know.
Thank you. Thank you for your question.
We're going to provide the NAACP Executive Committee with all the information that was talked about today, what Representative Holmes talked about. We're going to also, on the public side, express where the numbers are as far as contracting, and on the private side as best we can. On BRJP, where we are with Boston Jobs Policy, people of color. We're going to be working, giving all that information to the NAACP. So as their Executive Council talks about what the issues to talk about are, obviously we have shortfalls in the city on a lot of those issues, so we can work with the convention, with the delegates to talk about how do we improve the quality, how do we improve home ownership, how do we improve collaboration, how do we improve diversity, how do we improve all of those things. So that's what we plan on doing this week and next week, and John Barris's team has been working on with it.
So unfortunately, we are out of time for today. But we thank you all for coming. Before we close, I am going to ask Bishop Jonathan Borders from Morningstar Baptist Church to come and provide a benediction in the tradition of our civil rights movement. And also, I want to encourage each of you, we do have a membership table to my right. If you're not a member, there's an opportunity to become a member today. Bishop?
There are many members of the clergy who are here, and the clergy, the faith community, will continue to be the conscience for the poor and the needy and for reconciliation throughout this convention and beyond. We believe it's God's will and an intention for us to work together at this time on a whole new level. May the grace of God, may the sweet communion of the Holy Spirit, may God's favor and mighty hand rest upon all the concerns that we have collectively as people in this country. We remember the poor and the needy. We remember the homeless. We remember the naked and the blind and the imprisoned and those who are in leadership. And may God's grace rest upon our local and national leaders for this event. And may God's favor rest upon us all. Thank you. Amen.